What's going on, guys? Bruce Matz here, your host show of Metro Scout Fantasy Football. And just keeping it real, after week one, it's really hard to find trends because you got a sample size of one and you want to see things play out over a course of time, over a couple weeks. You get better adjusted to what's going on with these players, but evidently you still gotta look at the numbers and try to do the best with what you got. Looking at this player, we may want to take a little bit more seriously. Some of you guys may already have him rostered. Maybe a lot of you guys, especially after what he did last week. But I'm talking about Jarvis Landry. Kind of fell to the wayside during the offseason because we were concentrating on Chris Olave, Michael Thomas coming back. A little ambiguity with the Saints here. But last week against the Falcons, he had some things going on. Ran 32 routes. Up there with both Olave and Michael Thomas. 82.4% of his snaps were in the slot. So he's their slot guy, at least from what we saw from that last game. Led the team with 8 targets. Had a 28.1% target share. So an elite target share. Only for one game, though. But let's see what he can muster going forward. 7 catches, 114 yards, so good production. 123 air yards, so he's not usually an air yards guy, so we could see that reduce. That's probably built up through the volume, and also had a few big catches later in the game. 41.3% of the team's air yards. Of course, you're going to have that when you have 123 air yards. That's going to happen. He was wide receiver 15 with 18.4 PPR fantasy points. A damn good week for Jarvis Landry. In sleeper leagues, on sleeper, he's rostered on 66% of leagues and was starting 15%. So there are a good portion of leagues that don't have him rostered, and there's also a good portion of leagues that are not thinking about starting him. But let's see how that changes going forward. I imagine some people are going to think about adding him to their lineup after this boom performance. And I'm looking at these trend lines, and the fact that he's getting 82% of his snaps in the slot and getting targets is very encouraging. He's going to be that guy getting those cheap, easy targets going his way, and that could add up through volume. I could see some volatility because they can also sling it to Michael Thomas. Chris Olave could have his days. You could also see that. I'm not looking at him to go boom for the whole season. I just don't see that happening, but I can see him being good off and on. I can see these wide receivers just taking their turns throughout the season. That is definitely in the cards. This Saints team's going to be in a lot of dogfights, and these wide receivers are going to benefit from that. Winston is a lot better for fantasy production than a lot of people realize. We saw this on Sunday, and we're going to see this going forward. And Landry benefited from that as well. Gotten air yards, gotten targets, and Landry's always been a damn good wide receiver, nuanced route runner. He's steady, he's productive, and he's always exceeded expectations. Whenever the expectations were low on Jarvis Landry, he's always exceeded. That's one thing you say about his career, from his draft pedigree, from people clamoring over his low 40 time. Now him going to the Saints being forgotten about. Had a good week one here. He's always at least exceeded the bar, at least by a little bit. That's something you can say about him. Will he be a productive asset going forward? I think it's going to be off and on, and that's probably what we should expect. Wide receiver 15 is probably a good mark for him for a week. I can see him being lower on a lot of weeks. I can see him surprising us on some others. But I look at him as a good matchup play. A guy that you just want with your stable wide receivers, playing the matchups with. I think he's a solid get to get off waivers. Just see what happens. This is a good workload. I don't see why this workload can't change. I can't see why he can't be using the slot all the time. And I can't see why he can't be a good target getter in this offense. Maybe not a 28% target share, but maybe he's at around 18, 20, 22% on average throughout the year. I could see that with some boom weeks and some low weeks. And he may burn you on some weeks, and he may go off on some weeks. I'm not looking at him to be in my top flex wide receiver either. I'm looking at him being like a guy off my bench, giving me production when the matchups are right. So I'm not really looking at him to be my Jamar Chase or my top wide receiver or anything like that. I'm just expecting him to be a dude that I could depend on when I need to throw him in there, when I have those lineup decisions, and that's what you probably need to look at him as well for. But looking at these trends, it's very interesting. I look for him to give us something this year, off and on, and I'm interested. I'll be looking at him this season, those numbers, see where he's at every week, because this target share is good for week 1. The air yards are there. I want to see how the matchups play out for him, and he's a guy that I'm going to keep my eye on when these numbers roll in after every performance. But let me know what you think about Jarvis Landry going forward. Are you buying, selling, holding, whatever? Let me know in the comments. Smash that like button on the way out. Helps the channel and the algorithm. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because I'm dropping fantasy football content left and right. And it's only going to help you going forward. I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next vid.